Hello and welcome to the Mild Opinion Podcast. I'm Luke.
Logan?
And today, because we're getting close to Halloween here, we're going to be talking about horror movies. And to preface, this is our second episode about horror movies. But yeah, just because it's coming up quick on Halloween, we thought it would be appropriate to hit it again. Because there are a lot of good horror movies out there, as well as a lot of really bad ones. So, do you have a horror movie or kind of horror movie that you'd like to start talking about here?
Well, I think a good way to start this off, it being the, I guess, kind of Halloween episode, we'll start off with the Halloween franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mainly focus on probably the first three, the original John Carpenter Halloween movies. Um, but yeah, I think Halloween, the original, probably the, you know, quintessential scary horror slasher movie. I mean, it's, the original Halloween movie. You can't really beat that.
And it feels very appropriate, of course, to watch it for Halloween movies.
Yeah.
But also just because, not just because it's called Halloween or because it's about, like, the night of Halloween, but because it has that classic horror movie feel that fits Halloween viewing very well. And we've talked about this before, that you can't really make classic horror movies with that vibe anymore, because most of the big ideas with that have been spent out, and also just I feel like a lot of that was influenced by 70s, 80s, and 90s vibes that just don't come along as much anymore with a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think it's changed so much, just like the horror movie industry and stuff now, where a lot of people either want, like, something more like gory and like body horror, or they want things that are scarier than, like, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing, that's like not scary about a evil entity going around and, like, murdering people with a knife. Obviously that's scary, but I feel like now people want more than that. Like, they want it to be more complex. They want more scary stuff being shown, rather than just like someone like stabbing somebody or, whatever.
Yeah.
Also, like you said, the vibes aren't there anymore, because, like, it doesn't feel the same. Like, it feels now with, like, the better quality of, like, cameras and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It feels, more so like a movie that's, like, big production and all this. I think the charm of the old slasher movies, like the original Halloween and stuff like that, is, like, it has that old movie feel. It has that nostalgic movie feel. It's like, and it, even for, like, a horror movie, like, it's, like, cozy, I guess. It gives more of, like, that, like, fall Halloween-y type of feel, just because that's, a different kind of vibe than what they go with now, which is fine.
Yeah, a lot of I think a lot of Halloween-based movies that are about Halloween have scary elements to them, but aren't necessarily intended entirely to be scary. I know a lot of people grew up with movies like Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town, and then there's, like, the newer generation of movies that kind of fit that, like Hubie Halloween and stuff like that. Those movies are fine, and they definitely feel Halloween-y. It's just getting scared by them is not the entire purpose of it. The blend of that vibe of it with actual, like, horror elements, and then, like, that just touch of 80s, 90s, 70s, whatever, is what makes those other movies feel like classic horror movies.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that, honestly, a lot of the movies now, even if they come out around Halloween and stuff, like horror movies that come out around Halloween, a lot of them don't have anything to do with Halloween. Like, usually a lot of what will happen is, like, the companies and all that will put out horror movies, like a bunch of different horror movies or slasher movies or whatever around Halloween, but they're not really like Halloween movies.
Yeah, and there's doesn't feel right now, to the best of my knowledge, there's no movies coming out specifically for Halloween,
Yeah.
which is kind of disappointing because, in the past couple months, the big horror movie releases that I can think of are like Weapons and the last Conjuring movie, and they both came out well ahead of Halloween, and that feels just like a missed opportunity because I think there is still a market for people at this time of year to say, "Oh, I want to go see a scary movie in theaters," and that seems like a big marketing flop to me. Is make a big scary Halloween movie,
Yeah.
throw it in the theaters at the right time, like, and it I think would do better than being like, "Oh, we'll do September or November as a release date for these things."
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think, obviously the OG Halloween movies, they're classics. Michael Myers, classic, slasher, scary movie villain. Like we said, the vibes of those movies they check all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween 1 is obviously, the original, the best, the top tier. Halloween 2 is pretty good. And then a lot of people are kind of iffy on Halloween
I don't think
3.
I've seen Halloween 3. I've seen the first two.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like it because it's not really the same as 1 and 2.
Yes.
Which I like it still. And also, it still has, the old school themes, the cool vibes. It's about Halloween. It gives all that stuff. So even if it's not, the regular Michael Myers Halloween, like the first two, it's still in there with the good, old classic Halloween movies.
Yeah.
You can still throw that on anytime in October and feel, like
Sure.
that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, and it is right there in the name of, if you want just a Halloween vibe kind of scary movie, at least what's like intended, what you expect from a horror movie. Halloween's pretty straightforward, a good movie to kick that off with. Sticking in that vein of classic horror movies, though, I think my favorite classic horror movie, mainly because I actually didn't even see this until a few years ago, but I feel like it held up so well for me today, was A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I really hadn't gotten into it that much before, but when I sat down and watched the whole thing, I was like, that was a pretty good horror movie, and it has that like classic horror movie vibe to it. And that's kind of one of those movies that's grouped in with like Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that kind of stuff. That one to me has definitely stuck around as my favorite classic horror.
Yeah, I like Nightmare on Elm Street quite a bit. Yeah, honestly, going back to all that, you can't go wrong with any of the 80s slasher films, especially around Halloween. Like we talked about Halloween. Friday the 13th, phenomenal. Like any of the old 80s slasher movies, throw it on around Halloween and you know exactly what you're going to get. That's what you want.
Yeah.
I think, and I've talked about it before, out of the 80s slashers, I think my favorites are the Friday the 13th movies, even though they get real goofy later on. But, the first 1, 2, whatever, they're great.
Yeah. Also, just like straight up classic horror movie vibe from beginning to end.
Yeah. And obviously, the big three are, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with any of them, especially around Halloween.
Yeah.
I would like to jump to a new style Halloween movie that's actually based around Halloween that I know that me and you both like, that holds up very well. That being Trick or Treat.
Yes.
very good,
Very
and
good.
it's actually about Halloween, and it's a newer style
Hmm.
horror movie.
It
So,
feels very Halloweeny
mm,
too. It's not. I feel like it feels the closest to that classic horror movie vibe, but very more. I think that was like 2017, right? Or like 2016, maybe earlier.
I was gonna say I think it's earlier. I think Trick or Treat's like 2011.
Oh, okay, yeah. Uh, but even for that, you know, it feels very Halloweeny. It gives you kind of everything in terms of what you'd want out of uh like several if you wanted to watch like several Halloween movies. I feel like because that movie is short stories, it gives you all different kinds of horror stories. So there's like murder and there's ghosts and there's werewolves, vampires, stuff
Mm.
like that. Uh, and it's cool because when you showed me that movie, I didn't know that that was the shtick of it. So it was cool to see. Most of those started out, and it was like, here's this guy at a specific time of night, and he goes and interacts with this person, and then later that person they interacted with is like a more prominent character in a different scene, and then some completely different horror scenario happens with them. Then it'll switch over, and you'll see people who just died in a scene walk past because now it's back to the beginning of the night, and it's like, well, here's what happened over here. I really liked that a lot, and for it having some horror elements to it, it was also really fun to watch. It was like a really fun movie.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like it so much as well. It's it takes all these different short stories about these horror scenarios happening on Halloween and this, that, and the other, and it takes the interactions with some of the characters, some being more prominent, some being kind of background characters, but it all comes around full circle into, this whole big thing of like Halloween mischief and,
Yeah, yeah,
the spookiness and the different specters and goblins of Halloween. And it's like all these different ideas put into one movie that wraps up in a really cool way.
yeah. Um, that honestly, in terms of forwards in time, I think is the most recent movie I can think of that feels like a very good balance of Halloween horror mixed with it being fun, but not in a way where it's like it's a movie that's just about Halloween and then it's like kind of like goofy ghosts
Mm.
and stuff like that. Like it was very. I don't want to say serious because there was like a sense of humor to some of it too, but it kind of the stuff that was supposed to be scary they made it feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's trying to be a horror movie, which was just great. Um, for I think that about does for that kind of like classic horror movie vibe.
Mm.
Um, I think one more I'll mention, and I don't love this franchise like some people do because I think, and I probably this is probably a hot take to a lot of people. I don't love the Scream movies that much. I watch well, okay. Also, I haven't watched every single one of them, but the first one I feel like was great because it fully encompassed everything that that movie tries to set itself apart with, and it feels like a Halloween movie. Like you could obviously watch that as a Halloween movie. I didn't know the first time I watched it that they kind of had that meta feel of being like, oh, this is just like what the killer would do, because of the in universe movie series that's called I don't remember, it's like Slash or something like
Mm.
that. Um, but even after seeing that and then seeing a few of the other movies in the franchise, I don't think I have much of a desire to go back and finish the rest of them. I honestly probably will at some point, but it kind of feels like it's a rinse and repeat kind of thing to me of being like, let's find who could be the next killer or like a different amount of killers because the whole thing with Scream is there's always more than one most of the
Mm.
time. I know there that's not every time. Um, so especially in seeing the most recent one, it feels like a lot of it is just fan service at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe that's just because I didn't grow up with it like a lot of people did. I've never loved it. I think the first one was great because that's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. As someone who likes the Scream movies a lot, I would agree with that. A lot of it is just rinse and repeat. I mean, the first one, it was in a league of its own. It was the first thing like that.
Yeah.
Finding out that not only were there two killers, but they were like friends of the main characters.
And
all
one of
that.
them was Shaggy from
Yeah.
from Scooby Doo.
But like that was like in a league of its own in terms of like plot twist and like new ideas and like this is awesome. Like a different take on like a classic horror kind of vibe. But yeah, the further you get into it, the newer stuff, it's kind of rinse and repeat. Like, yeah, it's still scary because there are serial killers after you and all this, but at the same time, it's pretty much, oh, we got to find out who's trying to kill us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's this, that, and the other.
Also, it's very classic now at this point of the idea of what starts all of that is getting a phone call, and it's just somebody like seeming like they're just toying with you, and then them being like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" and then starts describing what you're doing to you.
Yeah.
That's so classic now and like iconic to that movie that I can't say that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to like throw a lot of respect at the franchises because of how iconic it is. I just can't get into it like some people do.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I understand it, but also those are, some of the same reasons why they are classic movies.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
I think my next movie is another new movie. This actually came out, I think, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I won't say that it's a great movie, but it is a newer movie that is about Halloween, and it's kind of unique in like storyline and all that. But at the end of the day, like I said, it wasn't a great movie. I think me and you both watched it.
I think I remember this.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called. But
Dark Harvest.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Wow.
I think it kind of did nail the Halloween vibe.
Yeah.
Like it's about Halloween. It feels like Halloween. The idea, like what's happening in the movie, is pretty cool, but it kind of. I mean, it's based off of a novel, so
Yeah.
I mean, they done well, going off of the source material, but the plot twist and everything that happens in it, it doesn't end up being super great.
I remember watching that with you, and it's very like engaging and like interesting. Just I don't even remember a lot of context about it, but I remember the ending was kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
But oh man, I remember I was really confused, and you knew more about the movie than I did, so you were helping me understand it. And you were saying, I remember you saying it's like an alternate world where there's this guy who comes out once a year, and all these kids are trained to kill him, and then whoever kills him gets some prize or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't remember what they actually call it, but it's
like, is it like Pumpkin Jack or something?
Yeah. Pumpkin Jack or something like that. But it's a sacred scarecrow creature, and they train all these kids to go out and try and kill it and all that, but if not, it will kill you, and whoever kills it gets the grand prize, whatever. Come to find out, whoever kills it is the next sacrifice.
Yeah.
and then so on and so forth. And
Yeah. That definitely. Now that you mentioned that, I like forgot about that movie. That has a very Halloween vibe to it, even for it not having the greatest ending. Yeah, especially the lead up to everything, because I remember most of it takes place in the day leading up to Halloween, and then they're like, "All right, it's go time," and it just all hell breaks loose. It was really, really interesting for a while.
yeah, and I think honestly with that movie, like I said, I keep saying it's not great, which it's not a bad movie. I think the ending, like you said, just kind of kills it, falls flat.
Yeah,
But the story's pretty cool, and like the vibe of the movie is really cool. I think if they could have made the movie longer and given a little bit more context, that would have helped it a ton, especially in the end. But I mean, it's based off the novels. It is what it is. And I mean, it's a unique Halloween story. So
yeah,
I mean, that's pretty cool.
yeah. Um, well, I'll go to one that I think I have as what I think is a good pick for a found footage movie to watch around Halloween is Blair Witch Project,
Mm.
because it feels very kind of eerie, folly, and I'd put that one in a different category than all the other movies we've discussed so far, because I feel like that movie's prime purpose is not to feel Halloweeny, because I don't think it takes place. It has anything to do with Halloween, but its prime purpose is to be like scary and eerie and weird. And I was thinking of all these horror movies about paranormal stuff with like Blair or the Conjuring movies and like Paranormal Activity, and those would also be good movies to watch for Halloween stuff. I picked Blair Witch because it's outside, fall, tent, kind of
Mm.
out in the wilderness, and I think that fits the most with uh, kind of the vibe of if I wanted to watch a found footage movie for Halloween, that's one that
Yeah,
I'd pick.
I agree. I mean, any scary movie can have like the Halloween kind of like fall vibe.
Yeah,
I mean, because that's what it's all about, scary movies and all that. I do think though that like the Conjuring series and stuff like that, it doesn't feel as much like Halloween movies or like
yeah,
fall movies as like Blair Witch does. So I do understand like what you're saying.
yeah, and that's very loosely that I say that because with with it not being anything, but like yeah, the main reason I say that is because they're just outside a lot
Yeah.
and what looks like really fall kind of weather, so it
Yeah.
feels very Halloween Octobery. Movies like The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity, I think a lot of the fear aspect that it can get out of you as a scary movie is this happens at any time with the
Yeah.
characters in here. So it doesn't have to be, because I think the first Paranormal Activity movie, it always looks like those movies are set in summer or spring or something. Doesn't have anything to do with fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing as like the first Conjuring movie. It's not like, it feels like the vibe outside is like summery, like
Yeah.
late summer.
Yeah.
Um, I have one more that I'd like to hit on, and this one
Yes.
isn't really like a Halloween movie at all. Like, kind of like how Blair Witch is. Like, it's not really tied to Halloween or fall at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it does make a really good scary movie, and it gives like the like Halloween spooky vibe a little bit, just because it's scary and paranormal and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Me and you watched this movie together, and we were both impressed by honestly just like how scary it was. And I don't know if you'll remember or not. The autopsy of Jane Doe. You remember that?
Oh yeah, isn't it the people who are in the morgue at night and
Yeah.
weird stuff starts going down?
Yeah, and then like they open her up and there's like a curse etched into her skin and stuff.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one, and I think that that's an interesting one because of like the setting of it is.
Hmm.
I can't think of really another horror movie that takes place in a morgue like that, but I remember one of the scarier things about that movie is there's not a lot of people in it. So at a
Hmm.
certain point, it is two people and it feels like there's always somebody else playing tricks on them or something,
Yeah.
and then once you start to kind of piece together what's going on, you're like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah, and then I mean, as the movie goes along, it just keeps getting like more intense and like what's happening and like
Yeah.
demonic creatures start showing up, kind of, like
Yeah.
they keep seeing stuff, and like at first it's like noises or stuff,
Creaks or like a door slamming and stuff like
and
that.
then it's like things actually trying to kill them, and
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that one also kind of goes under the radar because like
I did not remember that. I didn't think about that. That's a good pick though.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember after we first watched it, me and you were both like, oh yeah, like we've heard of this, but we'll give it a watch, and then we were both like, wow, like that was like genuinely scary, like that was kind of crazy.
Yeah. This last one I'll bring up as kind of I don't really remember this movie well, but I think there's something very Halloween-y about it. Is the Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just the Headless Horseman stuff. It always feels very Halloween-y, and I think that is a movie that will probably have another remake at some point that hasn't done enough with that character of like making the Headless Horseman like a huge horror icon, because people know who the Headless Horseman is and kind of the story with it and kind of the vibe of like what Sleepy Hollow is, but I think that's one that tends to get overlooked a little bit, and I think to make the Headless Horseman a bigger Halloween icon would be like very natural to me.
I agree.
Especially with like the pumpkin head and stuff like that. That's perfect.
And I do love that pick because it's not, necessarily like a Halloween like we would think of, like, most of the Halloween movies that we've been talking about, it's like people going trick or treating and this, that, or the other slasher. That's old timey, but it's like fall and foggy, creepy.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, Johnny Depp does a very good job. The story is really awesome. The Headless Horseman in the movie is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great pick.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Thank you. Do you have anything more you'd like to add?
I think that about does it for me.
All right. Well, this has been the Mild Opinion Podcast. If you're listening before Halloween, have a wonderful Halloween, and we will see you next time.